From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good Sunday morning. Criminal charges are now filed after the botched law enforcement response to the Robb Elementary School mass shooting. And the Texas Supreme Court is leaving a controversial new law in place. Let's get right to the three things you need to know in Texas politics. More than 2 years after the deadly mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, a grand jury this week indicted 2 officers who were at the scene. Former Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo and School District Police Officer Adrian Gonzalez. Arredondo is charged with 10 counts of endangering or abandoning a child. 1 count for each of the 10 children who survived the shooting. Gonzalez is charged with 29 counts of abandoning and endangering a child, 1 for each of the 19 children killed and 1 count for each of the 10 survivors. Both men are out on bond. The Texas Supreme Court upheld a new state law banning doctors from providing gender-affirming care to transgender minors. That includes hormone therapies and puberty blockers. The law passed by lawmakers last session went into effect on September 1st, 2023. In the 8-1 ruling, the justices wrote their decision was based on the legal merits of the case, writing, quote, "We do not attempt to identify the most appropriate treatment for a child suffering from gender dysphoria. That is a complicated question hotly debated by medical experts and policymakers throughout this country and the world." It goes on to say, quote, "We emphasize, though, that the only question we are called upon to answer is a distinctly legal one, whether plaintiffs in this case have established a probable right to relief on their claims that the legislature's prohibition of certain treatments for children suffering from gender dysphoria violates the Texas Constitution. We conclude that plaintiffs failed to meet that burden," end quote. Texas lost one of its most colorful characters this week. Musician, author, and one-time gubernatorial candidate Richard "Kinky" Fredman died at his Central Texas home on Thursday. Fredman, a vocal political observer, was known for his witty one-liners and bluster. He was 79 years old. Austin Congressman Michael McCaul, chair of the U.S. House Committee on Foreign Affairs, has been pretty busy, and Chinese leaders aren't thrilled about the work he's doing. Last week, he led a group of lawmakers to India, where he met with the Dalai Lama, despite the Chinese government warning him not to do so. Congressman McCaul is back in the U.S. and joined me to talk about his trip. Congressman McCaul, thank you for taking some time out to talk with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ashley.
You know, you've been pretty busy leading delegations of lawmakers and trips to Taiwan and India, and that is not going over too well with China. And when you met with the Dalai Lama recently, the Chinese embassy really, had some harsh words and tried to discredit what the U.S. was doing. Talk to us about why you went despite their warnings.
I went because I wanted to stand up for the people of Tibet, the people of Taiwan, against what we're seeing is a very aggressive communist China right now. When I was in Taiwan, I visited with the newly elected president of Taiwan, and we were greeted by basically an armada of battleships and aircraft carriers. Threatening, and they're exercising war games in the Taiwan Straits at the very time I was there. They're threatening Taiwan in a really aggressive way. And so I also wanted to visit President Modi, Prime Minister Modi in India. He's part of the Quad, which is the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, to counter the malign influence of China. So I thought that was very important to congratulate him and also talk about our efforts to counter China's malign behavior. And then the most extraordinary visit, I think probably of my career, is to visit the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, a spiritual leader of the Tibetan people, who in 1959, Communist China came in and wiped out, massacred the Tibetan monks. And he fled with his people in exile to northern India on a 4,000-kilometer trek through the Himalayas. And to meet somebody like that who harbors no ill will, has no negative energy towards China, yet China has this intense hatred for him and his people was really extraordinary.
What do you feel like was your biggest takeaway from that recent trip, meeting and talking with the Dalai Lama?
Just the Tibetan people. I had no idea the reception we would get. Thousands of Tibetans, children. It really, the bill that we passed says it's a policy of the United States that they have a right to self-determination, which has never been stated before. It meant so much to them. And the Dalai Lama said he prayed for this bill to pass, and I presented the bill to him. I thought that was really a powerful moment. In addition, we're worried about his successor. I mean, they believe in reincarnation. If China is very intent on naming the next Dalai Lama so they can eradicate Tibetan culture and religion. The one thing the Dalai Lama said to us was that I will not be born in China, reborn in China, and I will be born in freedom. And I thought that was really powerful, as well.
Yeah. People may not know this, but you've actually personally been sanctioned by China. Talk to us about that and what you see as the biggest threat that China poses to the United States.
We're in a great power competition with China. Their ambitions are clear. They want to dominate both economically and militarily. They have stolen a lot of intellectual property, but we don't have to sell them our military technology. And we've done that over the past 2 decades. My committee, we have the Export Control Act, and we are now blocking sales of technology that could go into their military apparatus, like their hypersonic weapon that was built on the backbone of American technology. We don't have to do that. I think for that reason, they don't really like me a whole lot. I think showing support for Taiwan also puts me in the bullseye and got me sanctioned by China. And now the recent trip with the Dalai Lama.
Yeah. When we think about some of the recent legislation that's been passed from us as an American, trying to make chips here at home rather than having that done across, another part of the world, to what's going on with TikTok and the potential TikTok ban, how important is it that people be aware of kind of what's going on and the potential threat that the Chinese pose to us?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those 2 bills. I authored and passed those 2. The CHIPS bill I introduced in the Congress, and the intention was to pull supply chain out of Taiwan. Taiwan manufactures 90% of the advanced semiconductor manufacturing globally. So 90% of advanced semiconductor chips are manufactured in Taiwan. If China invaded Taiwan, and I visited with TSMC when I was there, I was told that they would shut down. That would be an electronic shutdown for the world, and it would have devastating consequences. That's why Taiwan, I think, is so important. TikTok, in the supplemental bill that supported Israel and Ukraine and the Indo-Pacific, I put in that bill the ban on TikTok, that they have to divest, ByteDance has to divest its algorithms and TikTok itself if it wants to do business in the United States. Simply put, TikTok is a spy balloon in your phone. TikTok, they have algorithms that both China and Russia and Iran can manipulate to get their narrative out. And I think the younger generation, that's their whole source of news, is TikTok. And they have to understand that it's not an objective news station, unlike KVUE, which I think is very objective.
Well, if you didn't know or perhaps couldn't tell from behind the anchor desk, I am very, very pregnant. And it is time for me to temporarily sign off from Texas This Week. Now, rest assured, our team will continue working hard, bringing you in-depth political coverage. And I plan to be back at work with all of the coverage, commentary, and analysis that you've come to trust before the November election. I'll see you soon. As always, thank you for watching Texas This Week.